Good morning, everybody. We have a higher trade in the grain markets here early on Monday morning. It is 6:30 a.m. Central Time. May corn futures up a quarter cent at 547 and three quarters. May soybeans up 14 and three quarters at 14.19. We have May Chicago wheat up three and three quarters at 6.64. May HRW wheat up four and a quarter at 6.38. Spring crop insurance prices are set. The spring insurance guarantee for corn was set at $4.58 versus $3.88 last year. The guarantee for soybeans set at $11.87 versus $9.17 last year. Spring wheat $6.53 versus 556 last year. That corn number is the best since 2014. The soybean number is the best since 2013. March 15th is the deadline to purchase crop insurance for most growers. So if you haven't done that already or had that conversation, that would certainly be something to get started on this week. African swine fever concerns have returned in China. Chinese scientists have apparently discovered new strains of ASF that are perhaps a little bit more mild than previous strains, but maybe a little bit more transmissible. Fresh ASF outbreaks and some chatter regarding another go-around of this deal. They've been circulating and could certainly be a negative for corn and soybean demand. If you were to see a big resurgence in African swine fever, that's something that could ultimately have a big-time negative impact on Chinese soybean imports, both from the U.S. and other destinations. USDA will release its monthly crop production and WASDE report next week. This report will be out at 11 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday, March 9th. We'll talk a little bit more about the report later this week. I would imagine that a lot of traders are kind of looking for the same thing that they looked for last month. They'd like to see better export numbers for U.S. corn and soybeans because of the strong sales pace. There will also be some attention paid to the South American production numbers, although I don't know that there should be anything surprising there. We see so many estimates regarding South American production from so many different groups and so many different government entities in South America. I just don't know that there will be anything totally surprising there. The bigger report this month, of course, is the March 31st prospective plantings and grain stocks report. Those surveys for acreage are out, and farmers will be filling those out here the next week or two. That is the big report this month at the end of the month. Fund traders remain heavily long the row crop markets. Large speculators have been long more than 300,000 contracts of corn since early January. Funds have been long more than 100,000 contracts of soybeans since August. The fund length in the corn market in particular was estimated at 345,000 contracts at Friday's close. That, in my view, is considered to be a extreme from a historical standpoint. Funds were never long this much corn, even in 2012. You've got to go back to 2010, 2011 to find a time in which large speculators held more length in the corn market. The length in the soybean market I would consider to be hefty, but not extreme by any means. Soybean futures in China hit fresh 8-year highs overnight, according to my charts. The newswires said they were all-time highs. I don't think that's the case. But in any case, a sharply higher trade on the Dalian Commodity Exchange. Futures were up 2.5% to a price of $9.35 per ton, or about $25.50 per bushel. One source in China said domestic soybean supplies are tight and the downstream users are okay with the high prices. It is expected also that China will see a shift away from soybeans and into corn in regard to acreage this coming year. China will begin to see much larger Brazilian soybean imports very soon. I think I'm starting to hear that exports out of Brazil are really starting to increase here despite the late harvest. Russia's increased wheat export tax goes into effect today. The tax will rise to $50 per ton from the previous level of $25 per ton. The government's plan is to then institute a permanent floating tax on June 1st. As far as U.S. wheat exports are concerned, the pace of sales is the best since 2017, but it's only above last year by like 4%. So we haven't seen in wheat a big surge in export business like we have in corn. It's a good pace of sales. It's not a great pace of sales by any means. We're above last year by like 4%. So in order for this Russia deal to really make a big difference for the U.S. wheat market, I mean, we'd like to see a big increase in export business. Brazilian soybean harvest again remains slow. Private group Data Grow estimated harvest at 15% 13.1% complete last week, up from 9.1% the prior week. The long-term average is 28.4. Now, rainfall will be normal to below normal in key areas of, say, Mato Grosso and some surrounding areas here the next couple of weeks. Some areas to the east will see normal to above normal rainfall. So I don't know. I think when they get the window, they'll catch up. I really don't see this turning into a major disaster here by any means. Cattle market finished lower on Friday. It took up until basically the last hour of trade to see some convergence in the Fed cattle contract versus cash. It ultimately went down to 113 and change prior to expiration. Cash cattle was like 114 mostly last week. It's been pretty consistent around that level for the last 2 or 3 weeks. The boxed beef market was up just a little bit. In the outside markets here this morning, stock market's higher to start. The S&P's up 36 points. The Dow's up 275. Gold's up $10. Silver's higher. The U.S. dollar is a little bit higher. January crude oil futures up 54 cents at 62.04. Bonds are a little bit higher as well. Remember, if you guys need some more information from me, go to my website. It is www.standardgrain.com. Go to that website, click on Grain Marketing Plan here in the upper right-hand corner. For $49 a month, I will send you my morning email, which goes out every business day at 6:30 a.m. Central Time. It includes any overnight headline that you need to be aware of, all sorts of interesting charts, graphics, information, a lot of grain marketing items like how and when to capture carry, basis decisions, all that sort of stuff, all my grain marketing recommendations included. There's a text message service that goes along with that. This is $49 a month, billed to your credit card through PayPal. You can cancel it at absolutely any time. There's no other fee, no other obligation, no trading account required. Everybody have a great week. I will talk to you a little bit later.